Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our second mentor workshop of the spring semester. Welcome. Excited to work with you all this spring. I'm excited to dive into our second workshop of the semester. We're going to get started in about 5 minutes. I look forward to getting going. I'm going to send the link to the YouTube live channel or this stream right now. To my colleagues to send out to you. I'm putting out the bat signal essentially. And we're going to get started shortly, but looking forward to diving into our second workshop. We're going to cover some really important things, some really critical things during this workshop this evening. I'm actually going to elevate my camera so then it's not looking right up at me. But yeah, please introduce yourself in the chat. I would love to know who's here. I'd love to know who is joining us this evening for our workshop. I'm actually going to set up my light to be a little bit better because it looks like the sun is going to go down soon. So bear with me as I bend down to set up my light camera situation. Perfect. We are ready to get started. Just going to text my colleague, Emily. Hey, Lauren, thanks for being here. Have you had a good day so far, Lauren? By the way, thanks for introducing yourself. Have you done anything fun this week, or do you have any fun plans? You know, it's crazy. I'm starting to have more and more friends who have children that are in school, and so spring break is now becoming a real thing again that has totally gone off my radar for the last few years. So I'd be curious to know, is anybody doing anything fun for spring break? Post in the chat section. Would love to learn. We're going to get started here in a couple of minutes. So bear with me. Just getting all of my notes together. I feel like, I don't know, I'm feeling semi-optimistic. I mean, obviously, certain parts of the world are not as great as others, but it seems like the pandemic is starting to open up. I went to my very first networking event since the pandemic last week, and it wasn't like a ton of people were there. It was just a handful of people, but it felt like potentially pre-pandemic, which I know sounds crazy. I'm not, advocating being reckless, but it feels nice to start being able to go out and have social interactions and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's, I don't know if y'all are doing anything or starting to do anything social or starting to get out there, but if you have anything cool or any cool plans that you'd like to share, or any professional development or networking that you've been doing, we'd love to learn about it. Post it in the chat section. But hey, Paige, thanks for being here. Thanks for introducing yourself. Hey, Nico, thanks for introducing yourself. Not doing anything for spring break in particular, but you're taking a trip every month this year. Good for you. Wow, Paige, that's fantastic. I wish I was traveling like you. Hopefully to good places. Sometimes there's good travel and sometimes there's bad travel. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you're traveling every month this year, but going to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Nothing against Tulsa. I've been to Tulsa. It's a great place, but maybe not as great as going to Lake Cabo or something like that. So in our workshop today, it is officially 6 o'clock in Austin, Texas, which is where I live, 7 o'clock on the East Coast, 5 o'clock in Denver, and 4 o'clock on the West Coast. Thank you all for being here this evening. I'm so excited to dive into our workshop. So what we're going to cover is about, 10 to 15 minutes-ish of content, and then any other time at the end for questions if you have any questions. By the way, If you have not met with your student by now, please reach out to support@ambition-in-motion.com so we can figure out your situation. We're happy to provide guidance, help provide support. We know that sometimes getting students to react and respond can be a daunting thing. Some students, it's interesting, some students will try to wait for the perfect time where they're like, oh, I don't want to meet with my mentor yet. I want to go to this career fair. I want to go and do this interview first to see if I get this job offer, or if I don't get this job offer before I meet with my mentor. And our biggest encouragement to the students is just get started, get going, get out there. Because at the end of the day, your life is going to change. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. But if we can get started with meeting with our mentors, we might open ourselves to opportunities we may not have realized were possible. So our big encouragement is to take the jump off the diving board and jump into that pool and get excited and make moves. Start putting yourself out there. But I also recognize what I'm really going about saying here is sometimes it might take students some coaxing and some follow-up to get in touch with them. But if you have any issues with getting in touch with your student, please reach out to support@ambition-in-motion.com. So for this conversation today, we're going to talk about how to set proper expectations for your mentor relationship, the best way to handle any issues with the student. Perhaps maybe they didn't show up on time, or if you felt they didn't come prepared as you would like, or maybe they had noise in the background that you felt was distracting, or maybe they asked to reschedule on short notice. Anything, we're going to cover how to go about handling a scenario like that. And then we're going to talk about how to help students with key issues they face on a regular basis, like finding balance and identifying a vision. So do y'all have any questions about that? That's the agenda for our meeting today. Oh, I love it. Everybody's here. We got more people in here. Oh, nice. So you'll be in Minnesota. Nico, you'll be in Minnesota for the National PAS Conference next week. That's fantastic. Hey, Kimberly, thanks for being here. And you just finished up your first mentor conversation. That's awesome. Mandy Ramlo, welcome. Thanks for being here. And Kavitha Reinhold, thanks for being here as well. And Holly, thanks for introducing yourself. Thanks for saying hey. Thanks for introducing yourself. Thank you for being here. So let's dive into our topic. So actually, before we dive into the topic, I love to kick this off. I don't know if you recall from the first workshop, but there are 3 keys that I always love to focus on as it pertains to being a great mentor. That is honing your strategy, honing your story, honing your state. I said that in reverse order of importance. And what do I mean by that? I mean, when I say your state, I mean physically, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? Are you feeling up? Are you feeling down? Are you feeling sad, mad, dejected, angry, jealous? How are you feeling? You might not be on your best self today. You might not have the most greatest thing going on in your world. You might be feeling burnt out. And that's, by the way, normal. Everybody feels burnt out. Everybody gets a little bit stressed out sometimes. But when it comes to your mentor conversation, what's really critical is that you are in a state conducive for giving off energy. You don't want to be meeting with your student and give off the impression that you don't care about being there. And it's not necessarily because it's about them. Oftentimes, it's just because you're going on, you got a lot of stuff going on in your world. So the one thing that I love to do to get myself into a state conducive for being just at my peak self and just being excited and energetic about whatever I'm doing is I love to just put myself into a state, essentially to change myself and to essentially zap myself into an energetic mode, because our endorphins, when we're jumping around, when we're screaming at the top of our lungs, when we're dancing it out, shaking it loose, are firing, and they're telling our body to be happy. They're telling our mind to be happy. They're saying, okay, we're moving around, we're doing cool things, we must be happy. So for a fun exercise, because I just love doing this, for the next 30 seconds, what I want you to do is I want you to stand up and I want you to shake it out. I want you to shake it loose. I want you to dance. And then at the very end of that 30 seconds, I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. So stand up, shake it out, shake it loose, let it go, get it going, move the arms, move the legs, move the feet, get everything going, move the wrist. I don't care if you're in a public space. I don't care if it's embarrassing. I don't care if you got family members or friends looking at you in a weird way. I don't care. Shake it out, shake it loose, let it go. And on the count of 3, I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out, let it loose, let it go. I freaking love that. I love getting to a state conducive for being successful. It is so much fun. Man. That is, gosh, how do you feel? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn. How are you feeling right now? Do you feel better now that you've shaken it out, let it loose, screamed it out, let it go? Tell me how you're feeling. And I know it sounds crazy to do this, but it's so powerful. By getting ourselves into a state conducive for being successful, we are going to be much more likely to be successful at whatever we're doing rather than coming in with the sad, mad, dejected, angry state. So Getting ourselves into a positive state is so powerful for mentor relationships. The second key thing, story. What is the story you tell yourself? Why will you or why won't you be a great mentor? You might tell yourself, oh, I don't have the experience. I don't have all the answers. I don't know the right way to go about giving this person advice. That's normal. That's okay. They're not looking for you to be their Sherpa, or rather, they're not looking for you to be their sage on the stage that's giving them all the answers to all their problems. What they're looking for is someone to ask them questions. They're looking for you to give them guidance. So what I want to know from you, and post this in the comment section, what is the story you tell yourself for why you will be a great mentor? I love to learn about it. Post in the comment section. I love to learn about you. I love to learn about your stories. I love to learn all about that. I'm going to check the comment section too, see any other comments here. Hey, Geeta, thanks for being here. Or Roger, thanks for being here. Holly, you went to the dentist. That's always fun. Andrea, welcome, welcome. Melissa, welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here. You're feeling happy? You like the warm-up? Good. I'm glad you like it. Kimberly, you're feeling good. Excellent. Holly, I love it. Courtney, hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for introducing yourself. So let's move into the last part of the key things to being successful as a mentor, and that is your strategy. What are the things that you can do to become a better mentor? Now, fortunately, you're here. You're in these workshops. We're going to give you guidance. We're going to help you with tips. That's the strategy part. We're going to provide suggested questions. We're going to give you guidance. We'll answer your questions. That's why being here live in the workshops is so much fun, is because you're going to get this guidance that, you may not always get. And that's what the fun part about these workshops are, is we're going to provide you with strategies to go about being a really great mentor. So the first thing we want to cover here is how to set proper expectations. The first call, I want to set proper expectations right now. The first call should be all about your student. How do you know if the conversation was all about your student? Calculate in your mind what percentage of the time were you talking versus what percentage of the time that your student was talking. Now, if you've already met with your student, you're like, uh-oh, I probably spoke for way more time than I should have. That's okay. It's a good learning lesson. But the rule of thumb is this: I like to make sure that the student I'm meeting with is speaking at least for 60% of the conversation. If we're speaking for more than 40% of that conversation, that means we're probably dominating the conversation, which, for some students is great, but for other students, it might shut them down or shut them out. So I want to challenge you, if you can be conscientious of this or cognizant of this, I really like to encourage the 60-40 rule, at least the 60-40 rule, in terms of letting your student talk and open up, because they may be intimidated by you because you are their mentor. You're potentially older than them. You're potentially more experienced than them. They're in a position where they want to learn from you, and it can be intimidating when or when you think to yourself as someone that's wanting to impress somebody else. And so they may not feel as comfortable opening up, which is why it's so critical that you as their mentor pull it out of them and are asking them questions and letting them talk and spend the majority of the time in the conversations talking. Learn about what is going on in their world, ask them questions. I'm a big fan of, here's a question that I love to ask students, or just I love to ask anybody to really get to know them on a deeper level, is to ask somebody, tell me your story starting with kindergarten. It's a crazy thing to ask somebody to do, because you always think of yourself as like, okay, I'm going to tell you my story starting with, my career. I moved from this job to this job to this job. But if you ask them start with kindergarten, you're going to get a much deeper insight into their psyche, into where they've come from, into their upbringing, into who they are as a person. It's a great question to ask, and it's a really cool way to get to know somebody on a deeper level. It's cool, and it's also a cool way to find great layers of connectivity from their upbringing and your upbringing. So that's a question I love to ask somebody is, tell me your story starting with kindergarten. By the way, if you've already met with your student, you can still ask this question. If you're thinking to yourself like, oh man, that would have been a great question to ask the student on our first call, but we've already met. That's okay, no worries. Go about asking them this in the next meeting you've got. That's totally all right. Now, the question I like to follow up from that is what is your dream job? I like asking that question because it gets them thinking big picture of like, where am I going? What am I trying to accomplish? What am I trying to do with my life? And then the third question I like to ask is, where would you like to be in 5 years? It's a great question to ask because then it helps them more or less create a bite-sized chunk of where they want to be. I think it's so easy to outline what our dream job is, but we don't really have a great path towards actually getting there. It's kind of like a lottery shot. So if we can say, okay, where do I want to be in 5 years? Well, if we are able to break that dream job into a 5-year chunk that can help us know if we're on the path or not on the path, that's really helpful. And it's a great way to get your student critically thinking about where they want to be, why they want to be there, and how they're going to get there. So once you've learned this information, ask them what they believe is the one thing that they can work on in between now and your next call that will help them get closer to accomplishing these goals. I'm a big believer in atomic habits. Atomic habits essentially says that if we can do small bite-sized steps, whether it be daily or weekly or monthly, but something that we can consistently do on a regular basis, even if it's a small bite-sized step, we are much more likely to make a massive step and chunk towards getting our goals accomplished versus trying to do really big Herculean efforts, but sporadically. It's much better to have a consistent thing that we do every single day than to do one big sporadic thing, but do it unregularly. Remember that the thing is, remember what that thing is. When you ask them what is that thing that you can do to helping them accomplish their goals between now and their next conversation, remember that, write it down, keep a note, put it in your phone, whatever that you do to help you remember things, and then follow up with them about that. See if they were able to actually make progress towards that goal at between your previous call and your next one. So adjacent to setting proper expectations is handling issues. So this might be a scenario if, let's say, a student shows up late, or if you felt that they didn't come prepared, or if you had noise in the background and that was distracting, or if they asked you to reschedule on short notice, or anything that could have frustrated you. By the way, it happens. I want to just acknowledge that it happens, one. But two, the first step is not to get mad at them. I know it might seem like I should, set the tone and be mad at them. But I'll explain a really tactful way to go about setting that expectation for future meetings. So first step, not to get mad at them and tell them what they did was wrong. That is the easiest way to lose the mentor relationship, because they're going to feel shut down because essentially you got frustrated at them. So what I suggest that you do is you go through your call like as if nothing happened. So let's say they showed up 15 minutes late. You say, you act normally, say, act like nothing happened. Take the time to listen to them, ask them questions. By the end of the call, you say this: I really enjoyed this first call. Did you? They'll probably say yes. Then you say, I feel like I can offer you a lot as your mentor, but for our future calls and conversations, there are some things that I would like from you. First, if we say that we're going to start at 10 o'clock, then we start at 10 o'clock. Or if we say that when we're going to have our meetings that we're not going to have noise in the background, we don't have noise in the background. Or, if we say that we're going to have a meeting, like my expectation is that you have questions ready to ask me and things that you want to discuss during our conversations. Can I count on you to be on time for our next meeting? Or can I count on you to not have noise in the background for our next meeting? Or can I count on you to have questions ready for our next meeting? More likely than not, they're going to say yes. By waiting to set the expectation after building rapport, you are significantly more likely to have a strong relationship with the student than if you were to get mad at them at the beginning of the conversation. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about this? I'm going to look at the comment section. Hi, Dr. Rana Jackson. Thanks for being here. Kimberly, because contributing to another's success is such a great calling and your passion. I love that. Melissa Mel Slater from Kennewick, thanks for introducing yourself. You're a great mentor because you care about helping other people realize their potential, and you're a full-time professor at a community college. That's amazing. Hey, Sonia. They wanted to lead for internships. I tried not to talk much. That's great. That's awesome. Holly, you asked that of people, the 5-year thing. That's awesome. It's a great question to ask. You ask them what their main goal is and help them brainstorm on making little goals to get to the big main goal. That's a great habit to start forming. Great part of the Atomic Habits book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Very good book. And Corey, you lead with asking if everything is okay. Sometimes you may not know the rest of the story. They do it again, find them $20. Fair enough. Well, good. Awesome. Thanks so much for the just information and for the questions and for the engagement in this. That's awesome. By the way, if you've got any questions about any of the things that I'm sharing in this workshop, please feel free to ask. The next part is helping your student find balance and set a vision. I'm going to start with vision first. There are 5 core questions that I love to ask a student to help them set their vision for themselves. The first is, if this situation were to work out in the best way possible, what would it be? It's a great question to ask because what it does is it helps them create a paradigm for success. It helps them think about, where am I trying to go? What is the outcome here? I'm not just a taskmaster going task, but I'm actually working towards an outcome that I'm really trying to achieve. The second question that I like to ask is, what is one thing that seems impossible, but with a little luck and a lot of work just might be within reach? I love asking this question because it gets them thinking big. It gets them thinking bigger, outside the box. and it gets them realizing what is real and what is not real. And it also just gets them in the mode of, you know what, I can do this. And this is potentially realistic if I work really hard and get a little lucky. The third question I like to ask is, what will you commit to doing today, this week, this month? I love asking that because it gets them starting to set a plan to the point of, you know, hey, all right, this today, this week, this month, if I do this today and I do this tomorrow, I do this the next day, by the end of this week, I'm going to be here. And by the end of that next week, I'm going to be there. And after the week after that, I'm going to be there. And by the end of the month, I'm going to be here. That gives them steps that they can work towards and things that they can try to accomplish so then they can get to their ultimate desired result. The fourth question I like to ask is, who do you know that thinks big? I love asking the who question because it gives them a role model. Role models are great because if you can say, okay, you know, when the going gets tough, how did XYZ person you consider a role model handle this scenario? They're like, well, they did this and they did this. And you're like, are they human? The answer is, well, yeah. And are you human? Well, yeah. Well, can you overcome this? And it's like, you know what? Yes, I can. It gives them someone to look up to. It gives them a lack of an out for not hitting their goals. And the fifth question I love to ask is, what in your life keeps you thinking small? This helps them acknowledge that sometimes the people or the things that are holding them back from what they want to get in their life. And so it's a great question to ask because it gets them focused on, okay, who are the cancers? Who are the negative people that I just got to just exit out because they are not serving me? And who are the people that I want to have and attract in my life and have more access to? So those are the 5 questions I like to ask to help a student set a vision for themselves. I'll check to see if you all have any questions about vision. Looks like no questions about vision. The 7 questions I like to ask about balance, I'll go through them right now. So helping a student find balance, this is particularly helpful and effective, especially for people that are just feeling overwhelmed and they got a lot of balls in the air. They're trying to juggle them all. They're trying to figure their life out and it's not easy. So here are 7 questions I love to ask students to help them find balance within their life. And by the way, I love asking these questions to people in general to help them find balance. But the first question is, what do you want to say yes to in your life? This is a great question to ask because then it helps them clarify the things they want to attract. I mean, I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. We have to be clear about what we want to attract. If we cannot be clear about that, unlikely that we're going to achieve it. So what do we want to say yes to in our life? It helps them focus on the things that we want. Second question, what do you need? Excuse me, I got the hiccups. What do you need to say no to? So we can find sometimes in our life that there are things, there are people, there are activities, whatever that we know are hurting us, they're deterring us and are not helping us or not serving us. By acknowledging we need to say no to them, it makes it unacceptable for us to fall into the trap of actually going about doing it again. Because we've acknowledged we need to say no to this. We don't want to say no, we need to say no. And so therefore, if you catch them doing it, you can say, hey, I want to hold you accountable. You mentioned you need to say no to this thing, but you keep doing it. How can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? The third question I like to ask is, when do you feel pulled off center? This is a great question to ask because it helps them understand, acknowledge, and really clarify and really zoom in, laser focus on what are the things that are pulling them off of their kilter and just pulling them off of their life and their equilibrium. And that gets them focused on, okay, I get pulled off center when XYZ things happen. Great. How can we avoid those things in our life? And actually that leads to the fourth question I like to ask is, what contributes to this feeling? Maybe it's a feeling of overwhelm. Maybe it feels like there's something that's unaccomplishable. Maybe they feel like they're having to live up to expectations that are just not feasible. By asking what contributes to this feeling, you're much more likely to get an understanding as to where they're coming from. The fifth question I like to ask is, when do you feel most grounded in life? And by grounded, I mean, literally, when do I feel like I'm in flow, that I'm doing the thing that I'm meant to be doing, and that I'm connecting with the people that I need to be connecting with and doing the things that I need to be doing? When do I feel truly grounded? When do I feel truly in flow? When do I feel truly like I'm doing the things that I'm meant to be doing? Asking them can help them clarify what are the things they want to attract more of in their life. The sixth question I like to ask is, what in your life takes away from what might be possible for you? This can be a tough question to ask because there might be obstacles or might be obligations that they have in their life that they know they have to do, but it's taking away from what might be possible. But that's okay, because by acknowledging them, we can come up potentially with some creative solutions on how to overcome them. And then the seventh thing I like to ask is what in your life adds to who you are? So this is a great question to ask because it gives your student, it really gives you clarity as to what is making them a better person and is adding to their story, to their life, to them, and to who they're trying to be and become. So those are the core things that I love to ask students to help them find balance in their life and in their careers. So yeah, those are all the core things that I wanted to cover in our workshop for today. I love to open up for any questions that you may have. I love it. Holly, great point. Changing the plan doesn't change the goal. Do y'all have any questions for me? Any things that you'd like to ask? Anything at all. By the way, I do want to mention this. If you're thinking to yourself, I would love to be, let's say you lead a team. If you're interested in connecting with other leaders, so we have a peer, what we call an executive mastermind group, where we're connecting other leaders with each other. If you're thinking to yourself, like, I love being a mentor for a student, but I'm also interested in getting a mentor myself and being a part of a mastermind group because I lead a team and I love to connect with other people leaders, please reach out. I'd love to chat with you about it. I mean, our vision is a world where the vast majority of people are excited to go to work. When they're there, their expectations meet reality. And when they come home, they feel fulfilled. I think it starts with mentorship. I also think it also starts with leadership and being great leaders to our people, because if we can give our people a great experience working for our company, we can increase the level of satisfaction that they have with their life and their careers, and ultimately their level of just happiness overall, and we can make the world a better place. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to support@ambition-in-motion.com. Emily will schedule a conversation with us and we can chat about what our mastermind groups look like. And if you think to yourself, I would love to have a mentor program in my company, reach out. I love to discuss and see what that might look like and see if we might be able to set something up. Anyways, this has been a great workshop. I've loved the engagement. I love the questions. I love everything going on here. Oh, Ronnie, you mentioned, did I touch on time management? Yeah, so I did. So essentially, if you've got a student that maybe shows up late for the meeting or the conversation, my suggestion was, okay, go through the meeting like as if nothing happened, go through it normally, and then say at the very end of the conversation, say, hey, I really enjoyed this conversation. Did you? They'll probably say yes. And they say, hey, for future conversations, I would love to give you the best guidance and the best insight I can possibly give you and ask you the best questions I can possibly ask. But I've got a couple of expectations on my part. One of those expectations is that when we set a time, that whatever we're going to be meeting, that we meet at that time. I got a lot of things going on in my life, and I just want to make sure that if we schedule an hour for our conversation, if we say that we're going to meet at 10 o'clock, that we meet at 10 o'clock, because I want to give you my full undivided attention. I want to be able to give you my best self. And for me to do that, I need you to be on time. Is that a reasonable ask from you? And more often than not, your student's going to say yes. Instead of, you don't want to just go ahead and rip their head off the moment that they're late and get frustrated at them. That is not a conducive way to building a strong relationship, because it's always going to be on an off balance footing from then on out. So Ronnie, let me know if that answers your question. Are there resources for internships? That's a great question. I mean, we can look into that, but at the moment we don't necessarily have resources for internships. But we're huge fans of LinkedIn. We're huge fans of informational interviews and reaching out to people and seeing if they're open to schedule conversations. I mean, one of the advantages that students have is the fact that they're a student. And so by saying like, hey, I know I'm inexperienced, I'm interested in learning more about this industry and field, would you be open to chatting with me? A lot of professionals are open to having that conversation. So that's one of the big things that I love to do and love to encourage. Yeah, Holly, please go ahead, contact support just to follow up. Same with you, Paige. Please reach out to support@ambition-in-motion.com. In terms of work-life balance, should be a good discussion topic for mentees. Yeah, those were the 7 questions that I just mentioned. So Ronnie, if you want to rewatch this workshop, it's available on YouTube. I cover the 7 core questions of helping a student find balance. I'm a big fan of those. But yeah, Holly, thanks for following up and asking the questions. Just send an email to support@ambition-in-motion.com. And we're happy to answer your questions and help you out and get you set up. Anyways, thank you all for being here. This was a wonderful workshop. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. I'm so grateful and so glad to have you all as mentors this semester. I'm so excited to learn how your initial conversations with your students go. I look forward to our next workshop. Thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your night. By the way, I love that idea of creating a mentee job network. I think that's fantastic. And please email support@ambitioninmotion.com and we can see if we can try to make something happen with that. But thank you all for being here. This was wonderful. Have a great rest of your night.